I'd love to get started now. My name is David Silberman. I am the co-founder and CEO of Clinical Research Fastrack. And Clinical Research Fastrack is an organization that trains and prepares people to move into the field of clinical research and succeed and thrive. And today we are going to be talking to Sandra Fleeman, who is an expert in clinical research. She's been in clinical research for 17 years, but before that, she was a nurse working as an RN manager, and all types of nursing for about 15 years. So she has a long and storied career in healthcare, and which the last half of your career, Sandra, has been in clinical research. But before we get started, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the industry. The clinical research industry field is growing. It is about a $165 billion segment of healthcare, and it includes the medical device industries, the pharmaceutical industries, the healthcare industry, medical providers. It's a really exciting field where we're advancing medicine. There's over 68,000 open positions right now in the field. And we're at a time where more new drugs are being approved by the FDA than ever before in our history. So what I'd like to kick things off with is just to introduce Sandra Fleeman. You have such an amazing career. You're an instructor for us at Clinical Research Fastrack. I am honored to just be able to talk to you and to have you teach for us. Every time you teach for us, it is fantastic. The students love it. And we are honored to work with you. So Sandra, can you just kick things off? And for our audience, can you explain to them, what is clinical research?
Okay, so clinical research is a huge genre, and people don't realize how big it actually is. Clinical research, if a medication or a device or a program is used on a patient, then it has to go through clinical trials. In the very beginning, it starts with animal studies. They have to find the molecule, then it's animal studies, then people studies. With people, it begins with the phase 1 all the way through phase 4. It takes at least, on the average, 10 years to bring one drug to market. It takes a lot of work, and a lot of people are involved in that. And you have your investigative sites with the PIs, the study coordinators, and your patients. Then you have the clinical research organizations and the pharma company, and they have CRAs. They have people who do clerical. They have people who site manage. They have people who program manage and project manage, and clinical trial managers and lawyers and regulatory people. It's huge. It's just enormous. It just takes a lot of work and a lot of people to bring one drug to market.
And that's what's so exciting about this industry, because we have people contacting us and they say, I have a marketing background. I really want to get into clinical research. Can I do that? And Sandra, we've trained people who were in marketing. Now they're in clinical research. We've trained people who were in business. Now they're in clinical research. They were nurses, and now they're clinical research nurses. So depending on your background, there is a place for so many people in this field, it's so exciting. Why don't you tell us your experience? How did you get into clinical research?
I started into clinical research. I had worked nursing for many, many years, as David said. And, you know, you reach that point of burnout. And I had 2 daughter-in-laws who were actually in clinical research. And they said, Mom, you've got to try this. They'll love you. You're a nurse with a lot of experience. So I did. I went to a work environment where they were hiring. I gave them my CV on Friday. They called me on Tuesday, interviewed me on Wednesday, and the following Monday I was in training. So I wish I'd had Fastrack to get me there. It was a 2-week training. It was very, very hands-on, very, new to the industry, and did not know anything at all about research when I started.
It was trial by fire for you. It was sink or swim. Is that right?
Pretty much, yes. Pretty much, yes. And so, you have your own language. Research, like all industry, research has its own language, its own rules, its own regulations. It's very, very highly monitored by the federal government, as well as all other governments across the world. And also groups watch it. So
you know what, Sandra? That is so interesting, because we have so many students who they've been working in the lab doing bench work, and they know biology, they know biotech, and they apply to jobs and they're not getting jobs. They don't know why. And that's really the reason why, because clinical research is different than laboratory research. It's different than medicine. It's its own world. And you were explaining exactly that. And I think that's something really important for all of our students to realize. So you got your start, and then how has your career evolved?
Well, I started out at the bottom like everyone else. I was a CRA 1 and went to CRA 2 very, very quickly.
So what does that mean, CRA 1? What do you do as a CRA 1?
CRA 1 is entry level, and you're actually working under someone in partnership who's mentoring you while you're on the job training. And then as a CRA 2, you're ready to step out on your own. At CRA 2 is when I became home-based. I work from home, and I've been working from home for 17 years now. No, 15 years. I take that back. 15 years now I've been working from home. And then I went up to a senior CRA, which is your top, means that you're an expert in the field. So I was in clinical research CRA for oncology for 10 years. I stepped out of that and went into gene cell therapy, which is cutting edge therapy, taking cells from the cartilage of the finger of a little girl, putting it in the knee of people who suffer from arthritis and regrowing their tissue. But I lost my son in August. He became very, very ill. He had advanced stage 4 esophageal cancer. We lost him in 3 weeks. So after I got myself back together, I stepped back into oncology. There's such a need, and the expertise is there. So I'm back doing that now, but I'm not a CRA any longer. I have gone to the clinical science end. I work with the medical monitors, and I do scientific data review. So
fascinating. So as a CRA, you were traveling from site to site, monitoring the quality of their data, making sure they were running those trials at those hospitals and doctors' offices correctly.
Correct.
Now you're on the clinical science end, which just shows the versatility of this field. There's so many different roles.
Yes.
You know, you mentioned that gene therapy company you work for, and it's an amazing treatment. You told me this, and I want to share it with everyone. What this is the indication was for people with severe osteoarthritis who needed knee replacement surgery. And instead of a knee replacement surgery, which is very painful, costly, and I mean, it can be $100,000 with all the physical therapy and surgery and everything involved. And then they would, instead of surgery, they get an injection, and their cartilage was regrowing, and they were able to walk comfortably and go back to their daily activities. Is that true? That's what's happening with that treatment?
That's what's happening with that treatment. They're in their phase 3 study.
Wow.
They got their first patient in November. And so it's up and running, and we'll know in a couple of years how that's going.
That is incredible. Absolutely incredible. I mean, we don't know if these drugs are going to be approved, but when they are, and not every drug gets approved, but when they are, they can change and improve the quality of lives for thousands, if not millions of people. And you said now you are back in oncology research. And yes. I want to tell you a quick story. I have a friend who's an attorney, and he was the general counsel for Mattel. He was the general counsel for California Pizza Kitchen, the most successful lawyer I've ever met. And we were talking one day, and he said, yeah, you know, I'm working, it's mostly contracts and things like that. He goes, I'm not curing cancer, Dave. He said, I'm not curing cancer. And I thought about it. Sandra, we are working in a field where we are curing cancer. And yes. That is what makes me so excited to get up every day and to work in this field. And how does it feel for you to be working in a field that potentially is finding a cure for cancer?
It is very, very rewarding. It's very challenging. That's the thing about research. You're never bored with research. You know, people get into jobs and they get burnt out, and they get bored. You don't get bored with research. Every day's new. Every protocol's new. Every indication is new. And the thing about it is, if it goes into the body there's a study for it. If it's a device for a knee replacement, if my son, his company has MRI machines, they had a study because they improved the program to do a 3D MRI of the knee. That's a study, people. So, you know, no matter what you're interested in, diabetes, cardiology, transplants, toe fungus, you know, if it treats something, it goes in or on the body in some way, then there's a study for it. So no matter what your interest is, they've got it for you. There's a study.
Wow. Yeah. So we just had someone type in a question, and I encourage others to type these questions in too, and then we can answer some of them. And the question was, what approach should someone with a PhD in mostly basic and transitional experience use to break in the industry? And that's a fantastic question, because that's why we developed our program at Clinical Research Fast Track. At Clinical Research Fast Track, you're meeting with instructors like Sandra. It's a boot camp training, so you don't have to go back to school for your master's degree for 2 years or a PhD for 5 years. What you can do is come to our program and within 5 weeks, have the training experience and the connections to move into the field. And we are trained by people like Sandra, who also is connected to companies that are hiring. And I imagine the group you're working with might even have jobs right now. Is that the case, Sandra? Are they hiring in any position?
Well, I'm working contract now, David, so I'm not working directly with the company.
Okay, well, they hired you though.
Yes, they did. They hired me. But, you know, there are plenty of jobs out there, plenty of ways to make connections. The thing that you have to understand, if you want to be in research, no matter if you're a PI, if you're a study coordinator, if you're a CRA, if you're a medical mom, it doesn't matter what you're doing in the industry, there's something you have in common. There's the GCP INH guidelines, and they are the Bible for research. They're the regulations that every single one of us has to know. We have to understand them. We have to live by them. They're what we do. And you have to have that foundation no matter what you're going to do or what role you have. You have to have that solid foundation. Call it a cornerstone. You know, when you build a building, you have to have a solid, everything's built on that cornerstone. Well, your step into research is the same thing. And that's something that Fast Track does extremely well. They give you that solid cornerstone foundation for you to build a career on. That's your stepping stone out into the industry. And yeah. I have to say that Fast Track does it extremely well.
Yeah, and the other thing that we do is we are introducing our students not just to the rules and regulations and protocols and policies and procedures, but when they meet with you, Sandra, they're learning the nuances and the things you can't learn from reading in a book and you can't get online. And we're doing it in person, and we're putting our students in internships as well. So they're seeing it live, observing at a live clinical trial site in their hometowns. We have internship sites around the country, and that's really how it works. Bless asked the question, how do you start as a CRA? And I hate to give you the bad news. Most people don't start as a CRA. They usually start as a CTA, a clinical trial assistant, to a CRA. And even when Sandra started, she was an apprentice, so to speak, right? And you were working underneath a more senior CRA. So we usually start out as a clinical research coordinator and work as a coordinator for a couple of years, or as a clinical trial assistant, and then become a CRA. Is that what you normally see in the industry, Sandra?
Yes, I see that a lot. A lot of people who have stepped into the industry have been study coordinators. So they have that solid foundation of how the trial works, what it's like to be a PI, what it's like to be a patient. So they carry all of that valuable understanding and knowledge from that perspective with them into the industry. So I've met a lot of study coordinators who've made that step into being a CRA. A lot of them actually. Some of the study coordinators I have worked with in the past, I've actually gotten them over into the industry.
Right. And we had another question from Anu saying, I don't have experience in healthcare industry. What are my chances of becoming a CRA? And the answer is, It takes time. First you have to work as a coordinator. You have to take a training like Fast Track. You have to get in the industry as a coordinator, learn your medical tech terminology, learn your therapeutic areas, and then you can move into a CRA position. So
Yes.
it's not something you just wake up one day and you get hired as a CRA. You have to first get trained and then work at the lower level before you get there.
Exactly. And I know CRAs who are English majors. I know I have a friend who is a CEO, and she actually was a basketball player, professional basketball player in Switzerland. Her parents became very ill, so she came back to the United States to take care of them, and she had no medical background. But she started in as an assistant, as you said, a clinical assistant, and she began learning the industry and is now getting ready to interview to be a COO for a pharma company.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. We have another question. What's the guarantee of securing jobs after the training? So we have so many of our graduates moving right into jobs. I think 70% of our graduates are moving into jobs, but really what it is the people who are proactive, Sandra, the people who have initiative, the people who are following our process and our guidelines are getting jobs right away. And other people, they think, oh, a 5-week training, that's going to be easy. Well, let me tell you all, it's not easy. It's intensive, and it may be shorter in duration, but there's a lot of information and there's a lot of work. And the people who work the hardest tend to get the jobs the fastest. And so we have students who get out of a program, they apply, and they're hired. And I saw Jennifer, who is actually on this webinar, and she logged in. Jennifer's story is incredible because she took our class in Scottsdale, Arizona. She was staying with her brother, and she applied to every job right after the training. She was staying with her brother. She's from New Jersey, living with her brother, and for a month she couldn't get a job for a whole month. Finally, she gave up and she went back home to New Jersey, and she started applying for jobs there. Now she's working for AstraZeneca. She's in an incredible clinical research group. It's an amazing career, but it took persistence and passion and drive, and it took a couple months. I think it took a month and a half before she got that job. So there is no guarantee. Wow, we have more questions coming in. Sandra, what's a typical day and week like for a CRC versus a CRA? Are you able to tell us that?
A CRC's typical day is completely different from a CRA, totally different. With the CRC, you're working on site under the direction of a PI, and you are the boots on the ground. You are taking care of the patients, you're taking care of the regulatory, depending on the type of site you're working for. Some are PIs that just have one study coordinator who does everything, regulatory, all of it. Some of it is big SMOs where they have a regulatory group and a patient group. So it depends, but your main function is to run the study, see the patients, make sure everything's being done as it should be, and to enter the data into the CRF. Because if you do it on site, it doesn't do any good unless it's in the data. It's got to be in the electronic data capture so that the sponsor can review that data and look to see what the trends are and what's going on with the drug. The CRA is the one who is actually coming in to monitor the data that you have collected. So the CRA will come in and they will take the ICF and look at it first to make sure that that's signed and that they have permission to look at that chart. Then they take that patient's chart and they take that EDC, that electronic data capture, and they make sure that everything that you're doing is done correctly. You're going to make mistakes. They're going to happen. But if you make a mistake, we work what's called a protocol deviation. We set in place a plan to take care of that. So you're on one side, you're collecting the data and running the study. And on the other side, you're looking at the data and you're making sure it's scientific, makes sense, and is accurate.
And all of this information is looking at the safety and effectiveness of these treatments. And for the ones that make it through phase 3, they become the approved treatments that we now have on the market. 2018 was the best year ever for new approved novel drugs. and the industry is really growing. We have a few more questions and we're running out of time, but one question was, do you offer your training program online? Our training program is, the most valuable portion is the 8 days in person, as well as the internship. The internship is 2 weeks, and that's in your hometown. We have internship sites around the country, from Chicago to Atlanta to Scottsdale, California, you name it. We have, Sandra, I don't know if you realize this, we have about 100 internship sites around the country in metro areas. And that's in people's hometown. But you really have to spend 8 days with our instructors, because that's where you learn the nuance and the details, which you can never get if you're just reading a book, if you're only online. We do have some online components to the course to reinforce what you learn from Sandra and our other instructors, but you really have to have that in-person training. Another person, Karen, asked, what if I only have an associate's degree in health sciences? We have students, Sandra, who have associate's degree, and literally 2 weeks after taking our program, they're working as a clinical research coordinator. I know one at Arizona Arthritis Foundation. There's others who are working at Arizona Oncology in Arizona. And then we have students across the country. They only have associates and they're able to coordinate trials. And what a great career for someone with an associate's degree that can work in this field. Really, really exciting. Sorry, one last question. Someone asked about payment plans, and of course we have payment plans. If you contact us after the webinar, I'll give you our contact information and we can talk to you about those details. So Sandra, we only have a couple more minutes. What's the most rewarding thing about this career for you?
The most rewarding thing is the patient advocacy. As a nurse, and as a human being in general, I am a patient advocate. I care about people. And what better way to serve humanity than to find treatment plans that actually work to increase people's wellness of life? And that's the most rewarding piece for me. I have actually been on 5 studies that have brought drugs to market. I was on a renal cell carcinoma study. And the patients who were on that study had, before they had this drug, their life expectancy was maximum 3 months. I had patients on that study that had been on it for 3 years doing remarkable. Now, how rewarding is that? You gave people an extended life.
Oh my gosh, that is absolutely amazing to be in a field where you can help people prolong their lives. And not just for those people, but for their families and for all of us. It really makes us feel great to be in this field. We have so many more questions. One is, when is the next training session, in which city? If you go on our website, clinicalresearchfastrack.com, there's a course schedule. Next month, we're gonna be in Philadelphia, as well as in Scottsdale, Arizona. The month after that, we're gonna be in Austin, Texas. We're also going to be in Orlando, Florida, the month after that. So we're going to all these different cities, and we will be back in Dallas as well, Sandra. So that's going to be towards the summer. So we do have a lot of different areas where this in-person training can happen. But of course, the internship is in your hometown. And if you can fly to Scottsdale or to one of these other training locations, Austin, Dallas, Atlanta, et cetera, it's only 8 days. It's just 1 week. And then the rest of the training is at your home, in your hometown. Someone asked this question, how much money can you make? I'm not going to ask how much you make, Sandra. But there is a lot of salary information. Typically after 2 years in the industry, a CRC is making about $60,000 a year in their second year. So that's a really great salary. Now you don't start at 60, but that's great. I know CRAs, once they're a senior CRA, are making over $100,000 a year. So there are good, I mean, have you seen that? Is there pretty good pay in the industry, Sandra?
Excellent pay in the industry. Excellent pay in the industry. Yes, I can vouch for that. I made well above $100,000 when I was still a CRA.
Wow, that's impressive. And this chart, I don't know if you can see this chart on my screen, the number of trials being registered every month continues to grow. And this chart shows the growth of the industry of registered clinical trials year over year, and it's almost exponential. It's really impressive, the growth of the industry, the approval of new drugs. We're in a period of acceleration where this industry is really, it's accelerating and it's exciting. And there's over 68,000 jobs in the industry. Sandra Fleeman, I want to thank you so much for spending this afternoon with us this evening. And the half hour flew by. We said it was going to only be 20 minutes, but it's already been a half hour. It's always an honor and pleasure to be with you. Did you have any parting words for the group before we sign off?
I would say that if you're interested in entering a wonderful industry that is challenging, where you can do so many things and so much good, I would contact Fastrack. They have an excellent program set in place. And David will tell you, I do not give recommendations very easily. I'm very conservative about that, but I can really say that Fastrack does a good job. Thank you, David.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Sandra. Again, it's an honor to spend time with you. You're one of the premier experts in clinical research in the field. So I enjoy working with you, and thank you for spending your evening with us.
Okay, see you soon.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. Thank you all for being on the webinar. Thank you.